Hello, everyone, and good evening, good afternoon, where you are. We just have a delay with the instructor. He did say he's going to join in about 20 minutes. So we'll start as soon as he joins, and we should be okay. Thanks. Hi everyone. Just a reminder that we are just waiting for the instructor to join. Once he joins, we should be able to start. He did say he had a slight emergency, but he's resolving that and then he should join.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Hope you are doing great. This is Mimi here from PMI Sub-Saharan Africa region. Standing on behalf of Nelson, I hope you can hear me clearly. If you can hear me, please just drop me a comment to let me know that you can hear me. And if you can hear me, please let me know from where you are connecting from. I hope Africa is represented this evening. We'll have our instructor connecting shortly. Apologies again on behalf of an instructor and the entire team. We had an emergency, so we are trying to set, and we'll kick off very soon. But while waiting for him, hello from Rwanda, from South Africa. We are coming to SA very soon for the Global Summit Series Africa in Cape Town in September. Hello, Rabiu from Ghana. Hello, Zanele from SA. Hello. Yeah, we can hear again from Ghana, from Uganda. Yeah, from Ethiopia. Awesome. Hello, Lawal from Nigeria. Hey, we have someone from Tanzania, from SA, again from SA. Wow, I hope I'll meet you guys in person when we'll be there in South Africa for the Global Summit Series. So I seize the opportunity to invite all of you. Make sure you get your PMP and let's meet in SA to celebrate. We did it last year with those who were part of this series last year. It was awesome, to finally meet in person and also see all those who were really struggling with the various sessions and also the revision session and even the preparation, the exam, but they finally made it. They made it and they made it. All right. Hello from SA. That's great. So let's keep it coming. Our instructor is connecting. He will be with us in a few. Also, beyond letting us know where you are connecting from, it will be important for us also to know those who have already scheduled their exam. Let us know when are you planning to write your exam. Let us know when are you planning to write your exam, so that we encourage you, we also support you in prayers, because when one wins, it's the entire team that definitely win. So let us know. Okay. Okay, we have Emmanuel writing in May. 28th February for Storm. All right. Emo is writing in April, March, February. Okay. Meaning that very soon we are going to celebrate. Awesome. We are praying hard for you guys. I've been in your shoes 7 years ago. This is one of the exams I don't wish to write again, but it's so passionate. Okay, my friend from Ethiopia is writing in May. Awesome. Great. So since from now, you are going to celebrate every month. Okay. That's great. All right, Belson is writing in March. Okay, awesome. That's great. Belson, are you from Ghana? Your name is Ghanaian. I spent 14 years there. It's in Ghana that I wrote my PMP. in the center located in Dansoman City in Accra. And I was the happiest man that day of July 2019. All right. So we are going to kick off shortly. Just giving some few minutes again to our instructor who is connecting. Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Oh, you can hear me. Okay.
Yes, Emmanuel, I can hear you now.
All right. Thank you
All right.
very
So
much.
great, awesome. Are you all set?
Yes. So I'm sure you'd have to project my slides and then we can
Yes, no
start.
problem. All right. 1 second. All right. So can you all see my screen? Hello, Emmanuel, can you see my screen? Hello, team. If you can see my screen, just let me know. Okay, great. So if you can see my screen, just let me know what you are seeing on the screen. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so the instructor is connecting back. Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I can hear you now, and I've been unmuted now. So I hope that everyone can hear me.
Yes, it should be fine
Okay.
now.
Great. All right. So we'll zoom in straight. Sincere apologies for the delay. I'm thankful for your patience. Just as what we're going to be talking about, there are risks that take place, risks that become issues at some point in time. So a risk became an issue, and because it hadn't been mitigated or reduced, it has actually materialized. And so if this was a project, I'll put it in my issue log. But that's just by the way. Um, uh, Again, because we have sort of gone over the time for the start, I'm going to have to deploy a schedule compression technique, which would be you can type what you think I should do, whether to crash or to fast track. What do you think? Anybody? I just gauge the engagement. Fast track. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. All right. So this evening, depending on where you are, we're going to be talking about effective change, artifact, and issue management in projects. And that's my name on the screen there. You can connect to me by taking the QR code, and you'll be able to interact with me. So we'll zoom straight into it. We'll be talking about how changes come in projects. We're going to then talk about artifacts, and then we're going to look at how we deal with issues when it comes to projects. I believe that most of you have already gone through your 35 contact hours, and so this is not a new information session. It's rather an exam prep that gives you, the mental synthesis that will help you. So let's keep going. Let's keep going on the screen. If you can shift the screen. All right. So let's go to the next slide. All right. So as candidates, you see the content is quite large, and it helps if you can put them in compartments in your in your planning. So where this particular session in terms of change sits um, within the domains is one moment. Yeah. Right. So so the change, change comes in from, you all know the 12 principles and the 8 performance domains. So what I've done, all right, what I've done is to separate them, and compartmentalize, yeah, contactless, is to compartmentalize them so that you know where exactly this cell fits. So as you can see on the screen, the change aspect of stuff is going to be from the project work, yes, project work domain, and then the planning domain. It's in the project work domain because that's where you execute the approved changes, right? And then in the planning domain because it is based on the plans that all changes are re-baselined. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So sincere apologies. So right. So it is from the change comes into the performance into the project work performance domain and the now I'm settled in. Thank you very much. So the project work performance domain and the planning domain. And then in terms of the principles, we'll understand that there are 12 principles, right? So the 12 principles that you'll be thinking about when you're looking at any form of change related question is stewardship, where you think about making a responsible decision, right? So that's responsible decision making. So you may have questions that have to do with a change that has been orchestrated by a particular stakeholder. And it's important that while you're thinking about that question, while you're thinking about what the answer should be, your principle that will govern your thought process would include stewardship. It would also include value, right? So whatever change that is being requested for, it must protect and enhance the value delivery. Remember that as a project manager, you shouldn't progress any project if it is not going to deliver value. And so it's important that you make use of this principle. So as you can see, just making use of stewardship and value and matching it or juxtaposing it with the concept of change, you can see that the principles are sort of a guiding light for our thinking process, our thought process, so that if you have any sort of question related to change, you think about it from by making use of these principles. So there's stewardship, there's value, there's adaptability. As a project manager, you should expect change because from the PMBOK 7th edition, change is not an unwanted thing. In fact, we are encouraged to be change leaders, right? So change is something that we should expect, and that's why we should be adaptable. And then also we should be thinking, we should be thinking about the interrelationship between the system, so that if I make a change on one part of my project, it's going to affect other components of the project or other components outside of the project. You know that your project is not the only thing in town. So the project that you're running might not be the only thing in town, and therefore any change that is made to that particular project or that particular task can have an effect on other tasks or other projects. So just consider this. I was on route from point A to point B. I had factored in, I had identified my project risk. You know that making a journey itself is a project, right? Temporary endeavor. I knew that it would take me X amount of time. And so if I was running this as a complex project, and in this instance, I'm running this as a simple project, and that tells you that project managers the project approach. Because it was a simple project, I didn't have to put together a project charter and, document all the stakeholders and identify all the stakeholders. All I had to do was to have these things set out in my mind and do all of that. But in the process of time, a risk which had been identified actually materialized into an issue. Now that issue then warranted a change. Now that change has had an effect on a different project. So you see, systems thinking, you should know that that particular change would definitely have an effect on a different system. And so one of the mitigations I had to put in place when I realized that things could go off the roof was to quickly get the slides over to our host to be able to project on my behalf while I improvise on certain things before we get to this point. So this is just practicalization. All right. Okay. Now, yes. And then the next thing is you also need to enable change as a project manager. So you're not going to be afraid of change. You're going to have to enable it. So just the slide alone should tell you, should give you a clue as to how you answer any question that relates to change. PMI expects that your decision would be very responsible, will inure to the value of the project. We'll have to think about the other interrelated systems, and then we'll also enable change. All right, let's go to the next slide. Shall we? Yeah. All right. So now, as I put there, why projects will change. I mean, projects may change, or there may be changes incorporated in projects, perhaps due to inaccurate initial estimates. You know, inaccurate initial estimates may be as a result of non-availability of information, non-availability of precedent. So if the project has not been done before, you may not have an estimate that you may benchmark with. All right. So that may elicit some change because your assumptions may be wrong. The other thing that could elicit a change could be new regulations. If you started a road project in your country, and midway, it's a 5-year project, and midway through the project, there's a new regulation that no road should be no road should be less than let's say 10 millimeter thick in terms of asphalt. Then that means all of a sudden there's a regulatory change. And I'm sure for all of you who are familiar, that regulatory change is part of your external environment, right? So that external environment has the tendency of bringing in change. And that's what you are supposed to be looking out for. And so the subject of change is quite interesting. If you think about it, if you map it out very nicely, it makes a lot of sense. Then again, another reason why you may have changes will be missed requirements. You know that from the beginning of your project, you're supposed to identify your stakeholders, right? And so that's in the initiating phase. In the initiating phase, you identify your stakeholders, and then you you collect their requirements, and that's what in your planning phase will be the input for all the plans you're going to make, including estimates and all of that. So if you first of all even miss out stakeholders, it may necessarily lead to missing out some requirements. And then if you miss those requirements and you are on your way during the project, it's possible that there may be changes, because there may be changes coming from new stakeholders. There may be changes coming from your misunderstanding of a certain requirement. And again, there's another source. These 4 sources are quite key. The 4th source is specification changes, and I've used the road asphalt example to demonstrate to you. So as a project manager, you should expect these changes. Let's go forward. Now, PMI, as I said, expect that you are going to be a change maker. And I've talked to you about these 5 project management principles out of the 12. And 5 of these relate directly to change. So I'm not going to harp on this, but basically you need to be aware of how these all interrelate. Because if you were working with the PMBOK 6th edition, you'd probably be looking at it from a different perspective. But the 7th edition, focuses on principles and domains, and then the models and artifacts and all of that. So it's important that we integrate all of them nicely. And that's why for each of these topics, I'm talking about the principles and then the domains. All right, let's move forward. Right. So now you should understand 2 key things here, because these are quite well tested. and it's important that we segment them. So change what you're trying to do with change control is sort of to manage how change within your project is dealt with. All right. So putting the necessary processes in place to facilitate change when they have to occur. That is change control. And so you'll be looking at things like rebaselining when there's an update to the cost. Let's say we started a road project. We initially estimated that it was going to cost us $5 million because the standard we were using was for a 10 millimeter thick asphalt road. Now, because of an external specification, we are mandated to make a change, right? Now that change is going to have to be controlled. So that change control will run through a certain process within our project. Typically, for large projects, we make use of a group called the Change Control Board, right? A couple of people, including key stakeholders and decision makers, who are going to help to decide on approving or rejecting a change. So for change control, it's at the project level. It results in rebaselining, and also results in approval or rejection. So if you submit a change request to the change control board, the impact will be assessed. The impact of the change will be assessed, right? And a decision will be taken as to whether to proceed with the change or not to proceed with the change. That is what change control is about. When you talk about change management, now you've moved from control. You don't manage change inside of a project. You manage the change within the organization, because you know that most projects don't start as just projects. They start as a result of a need within an organization, whether it's a business need, whether it's an external need, whatever it is. It starts from an organization. So what we're talking about when we say change management is that we're looking at how people are going to receive the change that we have implemented, how we're going to ensure that they adapt and are ready to receive the changes, and how we prepare and support the people to accept the change. That's what change management is, as opposed to change control. So I'm sure that you have understood it now. So now change control governs what changes will be accepted, whereas change management governs who must change. So we assume that, let's say we are running this project, this training project, right? This training session that you are on is a project because it's got a beginning and an end. By 7 p.m. we would be done. But in doing that, we have all positioned ourselves that we're going to make use of our mobile phones. Now, if we decided that because of a particular feature of the project that we're going to run, everything has to be on a gaming laptop, then that is a change, right? That's request for everything to be done on a gaming laptop should have been run through a change control process, and that would have been reviewed by Nelson and our hosts, all the key people, PMI and all of them. Now, once they have agreed and the change has been approved, now we need to make sure that the other key stakeholders, the participants, are ready for this change. So what do we make use of? So we think about how we prepare you to adapt to that particular change. That kind of scenario is change management as opposed to change control. So I'm sure that I've been able to do that, explain that to you. Now, in change management, there are a couple of models that you're looking at. or you've looked at in your preparation, there's what is called the ADCAR model. The ADCAR model is used for change management. It's not used for change control. So I've said that do not apply ADCAR on baseline approval questions. What I mean is that if the question has anything to do with baseline change, rebaselining or changing a baseline as a result of a change, if you see ADCAR, run away from it because it's got nothing to do with it. ADCAR is a all right. Okay, so now the next, so can we shift to the next slide, please? All right, so while you look at change from that perspective, change control, look at it, we've talked about change and we've as a project manager, while you're looking at all the principles, look at systems thinking, right? Look at systems thinking. Now, so I'll come and explain the ADCAR to you. I've seen that there's a message there, so I'll look at that for you. All right. So in terms of change control, and when we say integrated change control, what we're trying to say is that you're going to put together all the linkages that link to the change that has been made. So for instance, I make a change to the requirement and say that everybody has to use a gaming laptop. That means that all of a sudden it has increased the cost involved in you participating. That means that it has increased the schedule that involved. So for instance, if it will take you a bit of time to go back to the house or back somewhere to pick a gaming laptop, that is something that has changed, right? So integrated change control is that you're running you're putting everything together that relates to your change control, the impact of your change control. So what do? The change request comes through the project manager and the change control board. Look at the impact of that change, right? And then depending on the level of authorization that the project manager has. So every organization or every project has a threshold of authorization. So there may be times when the project may be such that you can actually you can approve it as a project manager, or perhaps there may be a threshold that says that if you are if the project is above say $5 million, then it has to be escalated to another project, right? Another project manager or your project sponsor. Now, beyond that, you need to rebaseline. If your original project plan was that you're going to spend the 100,000 Rwandan franc on a project, and because of a change that occurred, your plan is now to spend 200,000. It wouldn't make sense to compare your actual with your original plan, because then you would be underperforming, right? Once the change control has been process has gone through, once the change control process has gone through, you will be then in the position to rebaseline. You get it? Okay. So once the change has been approved, it means that you're not going to be comparing your actual cost with the original plan. You're going to be comparing your actual cost with the new approved one. So I hope you're getting it so far. So integrated change control, what we're trying to do is that the change request comes through, you analyze the impacts, and depending on the threshold for authorization, you either approve it or you escalate it. Then that means that you have an authorized new um, uh, baseline, and therefore you have to re-baseline it so that you're comparing your actual performance with your with your approved your newly approved plan. All right. So that you don't show that, or it doesn't come across as you underperforming when indeed there is an approved project baseline. Right. Okay. So then let's move forward. Let's move forward. All right. So now let's look at some of the types of change requests. There may be a request for corrective action. When we say a request is for a corrective action, what we're trying to say is that we're adjusting the performance of a project with the project management plan. Okay, so we are correcting. We're trying to prevent an occurrence from taking place. That's what we mean by preventive action, right? So we're trying to prevent it from taking place so that we don't incur any unwarranted cost. All right. So I'm sure the network is better now. Is it? Okay. All right. So yeah, so we have types of change because we have the corrective action, we have preventive action, then we have defect repair. So there may be a situation where you may have to spend some money to repair a defect. So that's where that's another type of change, defect repair. And then you also have a baseline change. It modifies the project baseline. So all of these are types of change requests that you need to look out for. All of these are types of change requests that you need to look for. All right, let's move forward. All right. So now change is not just for it's not just for the predictive approach. All right. So even in the adaptive approach, such as agile and hybrid, change occurs, and we try to ensure that we try to ensure that we have made accommodation for them. All right. So we perform integrated change control as tools. So in terms of sort of adaptive approaches, your changes come through the feedback that you get from your stakeholders, right? They come from the feedback that you get from your stakeholders. So the user stories and all of those things become
Hello, Emmanuel. Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear me? Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear?
the changes. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I
but
can hear you.
we
I can
lost
hear
you.
you.
We
Can you
lost
hear
you
me?
for like
Right.
10 seconds. The network is not stable on your side.
Okay. Okay, it's going to be stable in just about a minute. So, but if you can hear me now, I can continue. All right. So, what I was saying was that just like with the predictive approach, the adaptive approach cycle, that's where the change associated with the adaptive approach. Right. Now, when to in agile or in any adaptive approach, you have you need to have some, how you change, how you manage the change, right? You need to have some ring fence around how you manage the change. So some of the controls that you have when it comes to the agile is that you have the product owner, who is the key decision maker, who's the key decision maker. Then you also have the rest of the team. Yes, they need to anticipate the change. They need to anticipate the change. Then everybody else plays a part in ensuring that the change has been adequately controlled. So the fact that it's agile doesn't mean changes are done anyhow. When you're running an agile project, just like the change control board controls the amount of authority and the amount of freedom, the headroom for the changes, is the same with the adaptive approach, where the product owner becomes a key decision maker in the whole scheme of things, right? So I thought for you to have a clue about this. Now, when it comes to the predictive approach, your change control board is there. You will have the opportunity to update artifacts. You will have the opportunity to ensure that the change request is documented. You will ensure that there is a properly laid down procedure for receiving change requests and the like. So that is a key thing that you will have to pay attention to. All right. So just a key thing to go with is that both predictive and adaptive approaches are supposed to anticipate change and control the change process while managing the change process, right? Managing the change implementation. So you control the change process and you manage the change implementation. And as we saw from slides back, controlling the change process means putting measures in place to elicit the changes and to document them and get them approved and implemented. Now, change management rather has to do with ensuring that the people who are going to receive the change are prepared to accept the change. All right, let's move forward. Good. Now, someone asked about ADKAR, and I said that ADKAR is a change management model, right? It's a change management model. It's not a change control. It has nothing to do with change control. It's not a change control framework. So this ADKAR is one of the models that are used in managing change, and that is awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. What it is that when you want to implement any change anywhere, ADKAR model can help you. What the research tells us that you need to create awareness of the need for the change, right? And then you need to build the desire to support the change. Then you need to provide knowledge of how to change, and then create the ability for new skills and behaviors to be developed, and then reinforce it to make the change stick. Now, how do we do this in practice? If in your workplace you were running a project and you decided that as from Monday morning, everybody is going to be wearing a red uniform. Now, that is a drastic change, right? Now, that drastic change, you need to find people who are going to receive that change and actually do it willingly. Now, how are you going to do that? Before the change is actually implemented, you think about how you're going to manage the change. So the decision to wear red is something that was suggested by a stakeholder, was run through the change control process. The change control process, and let's say it's been approved. Now you've got to implement it. Now we move to the change management arena, and that's where we're going to make use of ADKAR. So what we do is, if the people on this group were the ones that are going to be the recipients of the change, my change management approach to this decision, I'll create awareness of the need for change. I'll be able to come and tell you that, you know what, because of global climate change, there's so much heat in the atmosphere, and the kind of work that we do requires that we adapt to it. If we all wear the same color and come to work, it reduces the amount of emissions that goes into the ozone layer. This is just a hypothetical story, okay? Now, so I'm creating awareness of the need for the change. I don't just come and dump it to you that as from Monday, you're all wearing red and then walk off. It won't work. You may decide to go and buy a pink dress just because I did it that way. Now, as a project manager, your duty is to ensure that your project works, and therefore you don't have too much headroom to play with not making your thing work. So that's why we have models like ADKAR to help you make your project tick. So we create the awareness, then we create the desire to support the change. So how do I do that? As a project manager, I'll probably get some opinion leaders amongst yourself. I'm going to get them enthused about the idea of wearing red, right? The desire to support the change. Now, if I get a few opinion leaders who are influencers, they may help build the momentum for the change. Then we'll need to build the knowledge of how the change will take place. So I can even get some of the opinion leaders to decide that, well, let's get all the ladies to sew the red in a particular style, and all the gentlemen to sew it in a particular style. That is knowledge of how to change, right? We'll have to put in measures. We'll have to do training. We'll have to show, we'll have to show models of how we want the change to occur. Then we'll have to demonstrate the new skill. So I, as the project leader, or if it's an organization, the executive should be able to demonstrate the new skill and behavior. We should lead by example, and then we should reinforce and make the change stick. So that's how you make change, effective change, take place. So this is just one of many models that are available. Shall we move forward, please? Shall we move forward? All right. Now, the change is the people side of the change really is what we use at CAFO, right? So what I'm trying to say in terms of change management, the people side of change is that we want, basically the people side has to do with the organization rather than the project itself. And so we try to ensure that the PMOs build and sustain alignment between projects and the organization. Because remember, your project is not the only thing in town. As you're running your project, person B is also running their project. And all of these have something to do with the organization. So it's important that when it comes to implementation that will have anything to do with the people, that we manage it properly so that the thing doesn't become a fiasco. So that's the way it goes. Now let's move forward. So you reference ADKAR to recognize resistance, not to manage scope or baseline. So I've said again and again, if the issue has to do with scope or baseline, you have no business with ADKAR. ADKAR has to do with preparing the people for the change. All right, let's move forward. Okay. Now, some of the changes that will occur include contract changes, right? So contract changes, I've said that they are high risk, but what I mean really is that a word in a contract can change a whole lot of things. That is why it's important that we pay particular attention to changes that will occur in contracts. So you work with the vendor to manage the contract changes. Now, usually in contracts, you will have modification clauses in contracts. So every contract, every correct contract will have a modification clause, which will state how we will make use of the rules of the game when the game has to do with the change of anything in the contract. All right. So just as in your project, you have your project management plan, you have your risk management plan, you have your cost management plan. Your cost management plan, any management plan is a document or a statement of the rules of the game, that when the game is about that particular thing. Risk management plan is the rules of the game when the game is about risk. So when it comes to your contract changes, the rules of the game when it comes to modifications sits under the modification clause. Now, you work with the vendor to manage contract changes. So you have documented how we're going to make changes to the contract, right? You work with partners in the organization to take action within the project management team's domain. And then legal problems that are serious enough to cause issue may need expert help. So as a project manager, you are not the master of all. You are supposed to leverage the skills within the room or the skills outside of your organization to ensure that the project can run. All right. Now let's keep going. Now, yeah. So again, for contracts, you will have a change control system that you will document, you will put in place to manage your contracts. Because if you don't take care, you may have changes that have not been cascaded down. And if contracts have been modified and you've not cascaded it, then there's a problem with your documentation. There's a problem with how you disseminate information within the organization. That's the reason why we have to have a change control system. So I included this because it's subtly part of the curriculum. It's not really highlighted, but I thought to raise it here. That it might be a component of the integrated change control or a separate organizational system. It doesn't really necessarily need to be, sitting within your project. All right. Now, it can be as simple as a spreadsheet. So a while back, I was helping a company down in West Africa to set their systems up as a projectized organization, and one of the things I had to get them to do was to have a contract register, which stated exactly which contracts they have entered into, when the contracts end, any key things that need to be renewed at particular points in time. So that can be a way you're controlling you're doing your contract change control. All right. And that register will specify contract change, will include documentation, dispute resolution processes, and approval levels that are required. All right, let's move forward. Good. All right, so some of the contract changes that may take place, you will have administrative changes. They are not substantive, they may be usually about the way the contract is administered, right? So they are not really a big deal. Then you may have contract modification. That one is substantive. It's a substantive change to the contractual requirements. So such as a new or different deadline, right? So you may have a contract that says that you should complete a project by the end of January 2026. Then because of a change that has occurred within the project, they may say that we are extending the project by 3 months. Now, if the contract has not been changed, then how are you going to invoice for your project? Because your contract says that this contract ends at the end of January. Now, the project has been extended to March. So if you don't get the contract modified, then your project will get into some form of chaos. Okay, so that's the reason why we always say that we need to pay particular attention to contract change, contract change management as well. All right, contract change management as well. It's really key that we do that. All right, now let's move to the next. Let's actually stay here. So supplemental agreements. Let's go back. Yeah. So supplemental agreements are also a key part of things that we need to look at. So what are these supplemental agreements? When we talk about supplemental agreements, we're saying that there may be times when the contract itself might not necessarily be changed. It may be an additional agreement relating to the contract that we negotiate separately. I've had the opportunity to deal within the legal segment of business as well. And sometimes there's what is called collateral contracts, where you, for instance, have an agreement you have an agreement which probably will run as a project, a 2-year agreement to furnish a multi-story building. Now, that inside of that, perhaps when your stakeholders were coming to the agreement, you decided that you're not going to include a particular thing inside of the contract. So let's say the stakeholder, the contractor said that, this project is a long-term project. And so while I'm doing the project, I'd want to stay on the project site. Well, it's not something that you really, really want to put in your contract. So you decide to have a collateral contract. You decide to have a different contract that says that because you are working here and for the duration that you are working here, I'm going to allow you to stay on the facility for that period. So that is a related contract which is not inside of the contract. So that's a supplementary or a collateral contract. All right. And then again, some changes may involve termination. So when you have a termination, that's also a change that you need to pay particular attention to and see how you ensure that it is effectively dealt with. All right. So this is a summary of what takes place in terms of change within your project. And it's important that you pay particular attention to where exactly changes take place, how they take place, and how you manage those changes, and how you ensure that the changes do not negatively affect the project. All right, let's move to the next slide, where I do a little bit of summary on this particular segment. So clearly, we all should know that change is inevitable. All right, change is inevitable, and governance is mandatory. Now, the governance is mandatory means that we need to necessarily control the process of change and control and manage how the change is implemented. So that's what I mean by governance is mandatory. Now, value is a decision filter. What it means to us as project managers is that when we are running a project or when we are implementing any change, value is what we are looking at. So if all of a sudden there's a request, a change request, and you are assessing you're doing the impact assessment, and you realize that it's not going to add any value to the project, that is the more reason why that particular change is unlikely to meet the criteria for value, for which reason it will not pass the change control board and be accepted. All right, so you need to filter things through the lens of value, and then distinction has to be made between change control and change management. Those are the 5 things that I need you to pay particular attention to, and if you have those well catered for, you should be able to answer a lot of the questions very well. So any question that you get in your PMP exam in relation to change, filter them through these. The fact that there's a change doesn't mean there's something wrong. So don't let your mind go to the fact that there's a problem, right? And when there is a change, it's got to be governed. So if there's a question that tells you that, yeah, the project sponsor is the one who requested for the change, so, and the answer says do it immediately, think about it twice. PMIism requires that we always assess the impact. So it is notwithstanding who is requesting the change, we need to assess the impact before we can make a decision. All right, and then we can move things forward. Once upon a time, there was an engineering group, an engineering company that I was involved with, and I was just coaching them in project management as well. And there was a scenario that took place, and they were trying to be conventional about it, where there was a request for a change for an external vendor, and their immediate response was no, even when they had not evaluated it. So I called them up and I said, you know what, as project managers, so what is the reason why you're saying a no or a yes? If it is a policy related reason, then fine. But the change has come through a process. So you can't just say no without a reason. You have to assess the impact of the particular change. And if the impact is within your threshold as an organization or as a project, then it falls to you to be able to accept it as well. All right. So that brings us to the end of change. We'll be moving to a few other ones. Can I have access to now I have access to my laptop at the stationary place? Will I be able to share? Because I think the share for me is disabled. I want to share questions. I want to share some questions.
Hello, Emmanuel.
Hello.
So
Yes.
hold on.
Mimi.
Let me try and just enable you from my end here.
Okay.
All right. So you want to share the questions? You
A
want to share
different
your screen?
screen. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
no,
while
don't
Mimi is trying to fix that for me, you can if anybody has a question, they can ask that question and I'll be able to answer it. Well, somebody is asking, is a supplemental agreement the same as an addendum? Well, technically, you can place it as part of it, but technically, an addendum is trying to fix additional stuff into the existing agreement. So technically, the addendum becomes an incorporated part of the original agreement. But this supplemental agreement is a separate agreement that is next to the current agreement that we have. So you're not far from it, except that technically it's a separate agreement that is supplementary to the original one, as opposed to the addendum, which is, incorporating new terms or additional terms into the original existing agreement. All right. So while Mimi is taking us,
Yeah, Emmanuel, you can try.
I can do that now. Okay.
Yeah, try and share and see.
It's still gray on the screen, but well, if it's not working.
No, I promoted you as a presenter.
Okay. All right. So let me try this again. Well, it's still disabled. So
Okay.
not to worry, you project the screen. I'll just ask a question randomly. Then it would have been nice to
Maybe if you have, you can share it with me also.
with you. Okay,
yeah.
I have the answers, and I wanted them to select it before I show them the answers.
Okay.
That was it. Oh, but let me just forward that to you. We'll answer just 5 of them. I've got 10 questions. We'll answer 5 of them. Okay. So does anybody have a question at all, or everything is a walk in the park? Is it a cakewalk, or there's anything complex about it? Okay, it's a cakewalk. I like that. All right. So maybe I've sent these questions. Let's just answer two of them or 3 of them, right? And then we'll move back onto the rest of the content.
Okay, sure. Let me open the document.
All right. So while we're opening, while Meme is looking at the document, can anybody tell me what they think an artifact is, and whether any document can be an artifact? You can type your answer. Okay. Yes, I believe any document could become an artifact if that's what you decide. Okay. Project documents. Artifacts are project-related documents. Okay. So that opens up a very interesting arena for us then, because there's a lot to debate about here when from the answers you're giving.
All right, Emmanuel.
Have you been able to share it? It's a Word document,
Yeah.
so
The Word document, I got it. So I can push it. I can drop the question in the chat for them
okay,
to attempt. And then
we'll put the answers.
we'll put the answers later on.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I like that.
All right.
I like that.
So here you go for question 1.
Yeah. So we'll answer 3 questions and then we'll come back to the artifacts. Okay, so put your answers there for the question 1 that has been put there. So a project sponsor requests a scope change that will increase the cost but significantly improve long-term business benefits. Remember value and all of that. What should the project manager prioritize first? Okay, I see a lot of C's, a lot of C's. Good. I see a lot of C's, but I see a B. So let's interrogate them. When I am once in a while, I do run a LinkedIn live where we do cracking the PMP. It's at about an hour where we look at some techniques you will use to decide. But the answer is C, as Mimi has said. And of course, you need to look at value. All right. PMI expects that decisions are filtered through value principle before execution or communication. So the fact that the project sponsor is the one who said it doesn't mean just go ahead and do it. You need to look at value. That's why assessing the impact is a key thing for you. So don't have the PMI mindset. Don't think about it from who it is that is asking you to make the change. You get the point. All right. What's the next question? So the next question is, which statement best reflects PMI's view of project changes? Project changes. Changes indicate poor planning. Is that the case? Changes should be avoided where possible. Changes are expected and must be governed. Changes should only occur in agile projects. Again, another long streak of C's. I like that. That's why I call it the fastest fingers first, because everybody ultimately gets the answers, right? That's really good. So yeah, changes are normal, as I said from the onset, and you need to expect it, but you need to be able to put the necessary measures in place to govern it. Now, let's go to the next question. All right. So under PMBOK 7, which role best describes a project manager when managing change? Is he a gatekeeper of the scope? Is he an administrator of approvals? Is he a change maker enabling change value delivery? Or is he an enforcer of baselines? Hey, now the C is on autopilot. I think I have to change something. Hey, maybe let's do one more. Let's break the C. All right, the last one before we move on to artifacts. A project has an approved scope change, but users resist adopting the new deliverable. What should the project manager focus on next? All right. Okay. There you go. All right. That's brilliant. So I think you've all gotten a hang of it. Now, somebody said the D. Why would D be part of it? So revising the project charter, revising the project charter cannot be the answer. All right. What we said earlier today was that you make use of the change control to to either accept or reject the change. And you make use of change management to ensure that people are not resistant or people are able to accept and adopt that change. So the project team approves or rejects it using the change control. You, the project manager, ensures acceptance or adoption through the use of change management. All right, let's move back to the slides. Can the change project charter be revised? The project charter is not the change. The project charter comes before you even start your plan. Project charter comes in at the initiating phase of the project, and so that project charter is not as detailed as your scope statement. All right, so your scope statement is what would most often your scope is what will most often be changed. And the essence of change is that we have an original plan, which is the scope. The scope came out of the project charter. The project charter is what authorized you. It is the birth certificate of the project. So you don't toy with the project charter like you would toy with the project scope. Even the project scope goes through a change control board. And the project charter, you have no authority over it. The project charter was given to you by the project sponsor. All right, he sanctioned you to run the project. That's why that is the project charter. So what you are concerned about is that now you've been given the authority by virtue of the project charter, and you have now come up with your project scope. This is now the baseline. And so when there is a requirement for a change, the change is against the project scope. And that is what you put through the litmus test of your project change control board to ensure that the right changes only are accepted. And those changes are right because they are adding value to your project. All right. Now let's go to the slides again, and we are looking at artifacts now. So let's move forward. So as you all said, we're going to crash this course. So maybe if you can move forward. We've done the quiz already. So managing project artifacts. You see, artifacts are part of task 12. Now, why artifacts matter? They support decision-making, transparency, and continuity. So artifacts are not just paperwork. Let's move forward. Now I'll explain it well. So not every project document is an artifact. Again, like I did for the change, here the performance domains that apply are project work and measurement. Project work and measurement. All right, those are the domains where these artifacts sit. Okay, now artifacts are and then the principles that will govern this are stewardship, again, systems thinking, value, and transparency. Now, why would stewardship come in here in terms of artifacts? We're saying that the artifact is going to help you in your decision making, even for future projects. All right. So an artifact is any tangible or visible output that supports understanding, decision making, governance, or value delivery in a project. Okay. So if that document supports understanding of the project, making a decision as to whether or not to do something within the project, governing the project, or delivering value, then that document is an artifact. Okay. But the reverse is not true. So not all artifacts are documents. Because you may have something like, you may have a Kanban board if you are doing Agile. That is an artifact. It's not a document, right? You may have a bend down chart. That is an artifact. It's not a document. Okay. So artifacts, if you any document within your project that helps you make decisions, that helps you govern your project, that helps you deliver value, is an artifact. And you need to manage that artifact. So you can have examples of artifacts like the one. So the reason why you need to look at it from the performance domain of project work is that that is where you actually execute and control your work. So the artifacts that come into play are going to help you make decisions in relation to the work you're working on. Again, performance domain measurement. When you have measurements coming from your burn down charts or your burn up charts or your histograms or any of those measurements, right, that you have taken into consideration, those help you understand the project. They help you understand to make decisions. If you do your end value management and you plot a graph out of it, that graph is an artifact. It's helping you make a decision as to whether to keep going at the same pace, or to speed up, or to add more resources. Right? In making use of artifacts, you need to be thinking about things such as the fact that you are a steward. You are doing the work responsibly on behalf of your stakeholders. You need to think about the interrelationship between the project you're making a decision based on the artifacts on, and other adjoining projects. You need to make sure that it is adding value. Now, an artifact that is not adding value, for instance, we have metrics that are called vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are things that you are measuring that do not add any value at all to the project. I mean, if we're running this project, the training project we're running, of which you are participants, and we decide that we're measuring how much food everybody ate. Well, or we're measuring how many of us ate jollof before joining this call. It's a measurement, all right, but it has no use whatsoever on our project. So it's a vanity metric. If we have nice graphs on our dashboard that do not have any use, they're called vanity metrics. And as a project manager, you're looking for value. So artifacts, filter them through the value lens and make sure that it is proper value that is coming out of it. All right. And then artifacts also help us to be transparent. It helps us to be able to project what the project actually is, how the project is actually going and the like. All right, let's keep going. Now, we need to distinguish, some of the documents that we have in terms of projects, right? So we have project documents that support the project work, and then we also have the project management plan that governs the entire work. You see, the project management plan is like the canon. The project management plan is a combination of all the management plans. Would you say that project management plan is an artifact? Does it help you make decisions? Does it help you understand the project? Well, it's a food for thought. It's a question. Not all documents are part of the plan, right? Not all documents within the project are part of the project management plan. You know that. The project management plan is a combination of your risk management plan, your cost management plan, your schedule management plan, your stakeholder engagement plan, everything, all the plans put together make the project management plan. But you will be measuring stuff. You'll be doing your lessons learned database or repository. It's not necessarily sitting in your project management plan, right? You'll be doing your burn down charts. They will not necessarily be sitting in your project management plan. So that's why you should know that not all documents within the project sit inside of your project management plan. All right. So project management plan governs the project, governs the project, and it integrates subsidiary plans, as I've just said, and baselines are controlled components, right? So the baseline is the original plan that we had when we got the approval. The project documents may be archived at the close of the project. So we may decide that we have finished this project, and then all the documents now have been filed. They've been put aside. Documents support execution and control, and the like. So all of these are just to let you know that these exist. But now, how do we manage artifacts? We create them, we version them, we store them, we use and update, and we archive. That's the workflow for artifacts. We create them. So you decide that you're going to build a project performance spreadsheet. And here, when I teach PMP, across the globe, wherever I get people to go on to Microsoft Excel, there is one tool that Microsoft Excel has. It's called Project Performance. Project Performance. It's a spreadsheet. It's a free spreadsheet, and I often Project Performance Report is the name. So you go to Excel, go to New, and type in Project Performance Report. It will bring you a spreadsheet that is an end value management spreadsheet. It gives you all the definitions you need to know on end value management. Then it has a template that has all the formulae in it. And all you do is to rename the descriptions and start measuring. You'll be able to measure your budget at completion, your planned value, end value, actual cost, all of those, and be able to know your project performance. Now, where I'm going with this is that is an artifact, and so you create it. Now, when you create something like a lessons learned database, which is also an artifact, and because it's going to help you make decisions as to, some of the errors that you have to avoid and some of the good things that you have to keep doing. When you create them, you have to version them. Version means that we need to know the difference between the one we did today and the one we're going to be doing next year, so that I don't mistakenly pick the one that we did last year and look at it when there are more lessons that have been looked at. All right. So versioning is important, and that has to do with your organization. Your organization has to have its own structure in terms of how documents are versioned. So I have a background in engineering, and in most engineering, particularly in operator settings, when you have the first version, in fact, when you are drafting a document, your versions are in alphabets. So you start from revision A. We do the first draft of a document, a drawing, whatever it is. Then we do stakeholder engagement. People bring their views. And when we make a change, we don't simply make a change on the document and keep it there. We want to have a traceability of what the original document looked like and what the new document looks like. We'll keep all of them. We like keeping stuff. All right. So then version B will be the next thing. And so, for instance, this PowerPoint slide, which in this particular project is an artifact, right? Is going to be version, let's say the first draft was version A. If I ask Mimi for his views and he included a few things, I'm not going to overwrite it. I'm going to update it and say this new change is revision B. I'm going to do it until I get to Z and then keep going. But often I don't get to Z. Now, when I get the approved version, then the approved version now becomes numbered in actual numbers. So I move from the alphabets and go to numbers because those ones are going to increase, right? So then my first original version will be revision 0. So the approved baseline will be revision 0. Now, if we have a project and it progresses and there are certain changes that take place, I may decide that now the project is the new change has brought us to a point where my revision is now revision 1. So that's how you do it. You version your projects. Okay, you version them. Oh, let's go to the next slide. I've gone past this slide. To me. Yeah, you version them, then you store them. Okay, you store them. So you should have a place where you are storing these artifacts. You have a place where you have a server that everybody has access to, that is being it's being managed there, right? And then you use and update it. So you keep it updated. You have a document numbering procedure, a document numbering system where everybody knows which one is the controlled version and which one is the uncontrolled version and which one is the original version. When I say a controlled version, what I mean is that we all have to know which of the documents is the original document. We can't assume. So that if you all see this blue PowerPoint slide and you want to find the original, there has to be a place where you find that slide. You can't say that any blue PowerPoint slide that you find is the original one. It may well be that I have made some drastic changes to them. So you need to store them. After versioning them, you need to make use of a document control system to ensure that you are storing them properly. You are using and updating them. When we say archiving, we're saying that now we are done with it and we are putting them on the shelf. We're putting them on retirement. If people want to look at history, they can go and look at it. So that is retiring or archiving it. We are storing it somewhere that people can go and refer to in the future. All right, let's move forward. So configuration management, let's move forward. So now how do you deal with artifacts from this perspective? So configuration management and version control is one of the things you make use of. So I've already explained in extent. So the version control, where you decide on your numbering. Not every person numbers the way I articulated it. So in your organization or in your project, there may be a completely different way that by which people you number it, but it has to be systematic. All right, that's what is we have to pay attention to and make sure that it is done. Artifacts must be protected from unauthorized changes. Version control ensures integrity, auditability, and trust. If you don't have the original version, how will you know? If we are doing an end value management for project A, and we have not named it, if Kelvin on the call designed a document and he has not named it properly, how are we going to ensure that those his own is the right one? How are we going to ensure that his own is what he has sent is the right one? It has to be named. We all have to know how it is named for traceability. Now, Eric, so it's important that we configure and do our version control. So there are version control rules that companies and projects come up with. Right? So you are also able to make use of that. And then again, most proper organizations or most proper projects have a change history for traceability. So for instance, there's a project that I'm running in another West African country. It's an engineering project. And even right at the planning stage, there are documents that come through, and we set the original document through. It had its version control numbers and all of that. Then the client asked for a change. When they asked for a change, we could have simply made a change on the document and sent it to them. What we did was to rev or change the revision of that document, because we don't want a situation where somebody will be looking at the original document, which probably has something completely different. And we have updated the original document maybe 2 or 3 times. So the final document tells us that, for instance, on December 20, we submitted the original document. When they made the change, the version history is a table on top of the document. It's a table that is printed as part of the document. It's inside of the document. The version history will state again that maybe on January 1st, we revise section 5 of the document, and then we'll say that it's been approved by Mr. XYZ. Okay. Now, if it goes round the circle again and comes back and they need another change, we'll come and say on 22nd January, we updated it to the we updated section 7 of it, and this is it. So when we send it, it means that anybody who is looking at the original version, which didn't have this history, will know that clearly they are looking at something completely different. And anybody, if there's a dispute and we all pull our versions, we'll be able to know that there was version 1, which was the original version 2, which was the first change, version 3, which had the second change. So visualize what I'm talking about from that perspective. All right, that is the change history and traceability. And then we talk about access and authority levels. Access and authority levels for documents or for artifacts is that there are not all artifacts are available to everyone. So you may have artifacts that are available to the project team. You may have artifacts that are available to all stakeholders. So you need to make sure that you have put the necessary access in place. So that's why you go to certain organizations and they have their intranet. The intranet is not available to everybody else, even though all of you will be stakeholders. If I'm a customer to a bank, I wouldn't have access to their intranet, even though I'm a stakeholder, because there's access and authority levels. So that's what it does. So in your own project, you should have all of these in place. You should be able to manage, you should be able to have your configuration management system. You should be able to have rules for version control. You should be able to include as part of your template history and traceability. And you should be able to put in place measures to ensure that there is different levels of access. I'm going to wrap up in 10 minutes. All right. So bear with me. Because of the change, I'm just going to cut out a few things. Now, let's move on to the next one, the next slide. Right. So changing this. Okay. So now, how does this work in terms of your selective approach versus your adaptive approach? Now, some of the backlog or some of the artifacts that you'll be looking at will include your backlogs, your product backlog, your sprint backlog. By the way, I'm sure that by now you know what a backlog is. You see, in Agile and in a lot of these adaptive approaches, fancy words are used, but fear not. All you need to know is a few clues as to what they are. Whenever you hear a backlog, you're talking about a to-do list. All right, that's all it is. Now, then they talk to us about information radiators. Now, a radiator in a car, what does a radiator do? It moves things, it moves fluid, it cools systems down. So an information radiator is basically like your dashboard that has a lot of graphs on it. All right. The definition of done, DOD, definition of done really has to do with when we will say the project has ended. That's your definition of done. It has to be specified because we don't want a situation where somebody says, I'm done with my project, pay me my work. And somebody is saying that, no, you are not done because I expect that you will do this. So the definition of done has to be very clear, particularly in adaptive projects where the outcome is not really clear from the outset. All right. So it's important that we all define what done is so that when we are truly done, there's no dispute about it. Now, examples of artifacts from the predictive approach, you will have your work breakdown structure, your schedule baseline, your cost baseline, your requirements documentation. You'll have all of these as artifacts. But note that artifacts are not only documents. Remember, I told you, document artifacts can be any other thing that helps you to make a decision. Let's move forward. Okay. Right. Okay. So again, look at what information radiators have. Okay, so I'm now seeing that some of the questions are coming on the on the chat. Okay, I'll answer your question afterwards. So information radiators. Why would information radiators be part of artifacts? You see, the importance of information radiators is to give you a visual, it gives you it shows transparency. It gives you a visual overview of what is happening. Okay. It gives you a visual overview of what is happening. Visual shared and real-time artifacts. They promote transparency and alignment. They reduce dependency on formal reports. If I have this dashboard on the corridor in our project office, then everybody has access to it, and we are all transparent as to how far we are on the project and how the project is doing. All right. So you may have things like a task board, you may have a bend down chart, you may have dashboards, you may have um, what are retrospectives? Think about lessons learned. What are retrospectives? You can type your answer. I'm not seeing any answer. If has to do with processes, okay. Anybody else? What can be improved? Okay. All right. So you see, as I said, when you're running adaptive approaches, when you're using agile, for instance, we do a lot of traditional things, a lot of traditions such as stand-up meetings. It's a stand-up meeting, well, because when it started, we had to stand up literally and do it. So we stand up and have the meetings, and it's a very short meeting. Now the same thing happens. So when you can do your you can do a stand-up meeting and talk about you know what is happening next, whether there are any blockers, and and then we move forward. A very short meeting. Then you can have a retrospective. That is also another short, brief meeting, but we do it at the end of a sprint, right? And then we do retrospection. We think back at what we have done, and to find out what went well, what didn't go well, what can be improved. Basically, when you are running a predictive approach to your projects, what you do is you sit at a meeting and you do your lessons learned review. The retrospective is the adaptive version of your standard lessons learned. All right. So when we say retrospectives, we are not talking about anything complicated. We are saying that we're talking about retrospective as in the way it means in English. When you look at something in retrospect, you're looking at it from the back. Retro, if it's old age, right? Old time, retro. Now, retrospective means you looking backwards at what you've done, and you're finding out what went well, what didn't go well, what can you improve. That is a retrospective. Now, you document that, right? When you document that, that becomes a lesson, that becomes something that a decision can be made based on. Because of that, it is an artifact for us. Lessons learned are the same. You build your lessons learned. I'm into well, when I started drilling, uh, drilling. For those of you in East Africa, I was involved in drilling operations in Turkana, so project managing some aspects of work. And when we started drilling, our first well took us over 40 days, 40 days, over 40 days. Then we had to document, right? We had to document lessons. So we will document what is happening at every stage. So we drill maybe the first 20-meter hole. We drill it up to a certain level, and we realize that the plan we put in place is not what is reflecting there. So what do? We document it that okay. So there was this at this level of the formation, this took place, and we did this change. We implemented this change in order to surmount it. It's a lesson. It is something we can do to improve. The next time, perhaps maybe the people in the community, the stakeholders are, perhaps seeing have been put in a situation where they're thinking that perhaps their water bodies um, may be dealt with, or their land is being used. So what do? They sit on the roads and all of that. And what do we have to do? We document it again that when such a thing happened, we sent our community engagement teams to go there and let them know the importance of that project to the entire country and what we were going to do to support them and all of that. And then they moved. So that next time, so when we've documented all of that, we documented all the technical stuff as well. By the time we were done with the first well, we took maybe 40 days, in fact, more than that. The next one began to reduce, perhaps 20, 30 days, 20 days. Now you could drill a well in 25 days, right? And that is because of your lessons learned. So the lessons that you learn, they help you make decisions. So what went well, what didn't go well, it is not for finding faults and looking for who didn't do the right thing. It is for projects, future projects, and the current projects to be able to benefit from it. All right. So anything that helps you make a decision is an artifact. So we're not just looking at paperwork, we're looking at, you know, things within your project that help you make a decision. All of them will form part of artifacts. All right, let's move forward quickly. Now, who owns the artifacts? So, ownership and responsibilities. So the project manager governs the process of documenting and storage of the artifacts. The team do the creation and updates. And then in terms of agile, you have the product owner who backlogs artifacts, and then organization also provides the repositories. You know what an OPA is? Who knows what an OPA is? OPA is an organizational process asset. Okay. Organizational process asset. Good. Duncan. Duncan is answering all the questions here. OPAs, Lawal says policies and procedures. Okay. Yeah. They are examples of organizational process assets. So organizational process assets are, the assets within your organization that help you that facilitate the processes. Basically, it's in the name, right? So you have policies and procedures, they are organizational process assets. You have your company manuals, the organizational process assets. You have your company standards, the organizational process assets. Your company, everything within your company that controls the way you will run your project is an organizational process asset. But then we also have enterprise environmental factors, which are factors outside of your organization, which are also affect the way you run your project. So your government laws, the public holidays, the forex rates. They are enterprise-wise. They are enterprise environmental factors. They are factors that are attached to the environment of your organization that affect the way you run your project. All right. So these things are all filters through which you look for your artifacts. Um, Now we talked about archiving lessons learned and continuity. So archiving, you archive your artifacts at closure. So all the artifacts, all the things that helped you to do it, your burn down charts and everything, you put them nicely in a shelf, or you put them nicely on the cloud, so that in future, if somebody is running a similar project, we can take your project and use it as a parameter, so that we can also make parametric estimates. For those of you who are still learning your estimates, you know that there are types of estimates. We have parametric estimates, right? Looking at estimates as parameters based on a parameter. So if somebody was able to tile a 1 square meter for 100 shillings, if we're going to do 100 square meter tiling, we know that it's 100 shillings times 100 square meters. So that is 10,000 shillings. So that is parametric. We are trying to make use of an estimate based on a parameter. That's just by the by. But what I'm saying is that you archive your artifacts at closure. Then you update your lessons learned repository. The lesson learned repository is not a safe. It is not a bank. It is not it's not a shrine. What it is a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet that documents what went well, what didn't go well, how we can improve, at what phase we were, when we actually documented this, when it happened, how we were able to integrate it back into our project. So that becomes an artifact that we are archiving for the next project. For another project, somebody can come and pick a history from your project and make use of it and improve, just as we did in Turkana and we did in many other places, even in Ghana, and did a lot of improvement. So lessons learned in any aspect of your project will help you drastically improve stuff. All right. It also enables organizational learning. You will be able to have these for future reference. I used to hire a couple of engineers, and when they come in, I say, well, we have this server. You can feast your eyes on the projects we've done in the past. That will give you an idea how we run projects here. You go through the folders, you will see that we have labeled them in such a way that you will be able to work your way through the entire project and understand what went well. And then you can come and ask us questions. So that becomes, that gives people the opportunity to learn when they come into a new organization. All right. And it also supports future projects. So on this note, let me end here. Artifacts enable decision making, right? Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. Amy. Yeah. Oh, we've gone past this long ago, Mimi. Yeah, good. Here we. So I'll be ending on this one. Artifacts enable decision. Therefore, select artifacts based on the context and the value. You remember value here again. So don't just start doing something because the other project did it. We look at the value. If your project just has to do with traveling from point A to point B, as I was doing in my project that I finished just before starting this project of training, then you don't need to start doing a lessons learned spreadsheet. You don't need to orchestrate a whole burn down chart, but you select an artifact based on the context, and then you look at its value to your particular project. All right. Maintain integrity through version control. So you don't want to have too many versions. Sometimes you yourself will get confused. Oh, you start working on the document and you realize that you've been working on the wrong document all this while. All right. And then distinguish documents from the project management plan. Know that not every document that passes in front of you is part of your project management plan. So on this note, I want to end here. Maybe I think we've gone way past our time. So if you want to, run through the maybe two or three of the questions, then we'll just wrap it up.
All right, no problem. So randomly, or I mean, I will just start from question 5 where we stop.
Randomly. But I have questions for. So you see that you start from after the question 10. I've started question under task 12. I've started question 1 again. You see.
Okay. So
Yeah. So let's do that one. Okay. Let's see. We're on another C streak. A project manager. Oh my goodness. I have to. Yeah. So the answer is C. Okay. Let's go to do the next question. I think people have found the code. I wanted it to be easy to access. All right. Which statement best describes the relationship between a project document and the project management plan? Uh, The project management plan governs work, while documents support execution and control. So you've gotten the answer. And then let's do the third one, and then we'll be done. Hey, some people are answering before the question. Okay, the third one will do the trick. Put the third one there. Olusegun. Okay. A team member updates a requirements document without approval, causing confusion among stakeholders. What process was most likely not followed? Risk management, configuration management, stakeholder engagement, quality control. Now I see what's going on. Oh, okay. Olusegun, you said the C was for question 2. Okay, good. Good. Now I'm seeing what I want to see. Dinah, Halima. I'm seeing what I want to see. Okay, so question 3. You know why a lot of Dembelili? Okay, good. So the people I've mentioned, they provided an answer that is correct. You remember when I was talking about the version control, right? When I was talking about the version control, I mentioned configuration management. Now, it has a lot to do with helping you, uniquely identify and track changes. All right. So whenever you see configuration management, it is the phenomenon where you are able to identify, document, and control or track changes to a certain system. So we're running a project and we have one document and we're saying that change it from revision 0 to revision 1 because we've made a correction. So let's say this set of questions that were posted, if after sharing it with Mimi, which is now becomes an approval, which becomes the approved version, the baseline. If I sat behind my computer and made a change, I made some modifications. There'll be two versions, right? There'll be the one with me, and then there'll be one with me as well. Now, if I'm sending that over to him, I need to work through my configuration management. That I need to have my configuration management plan in place. We all need to agree that the latest version goes with the next sequential number. It has to be pre-approved, agreed before we even move forward. All right. So configuration management helps us to uniquely identify and track changes. All right. It ensures that everyone is working from the right version and reading the right thing. So that's why configuration management is the right answer there. All right. So this was a good way of ending street to something which is a breath of fresh air, a B, literally B for breath of fresh air. So configuration management and version control ensure that artifacts are protected from unauthorized changes and remain reliable decision tools. So that's why revision. That's why B is the correct answer. So on that note, I'll say a big thank you to all of you. If there are any questions from your side, you can you can share it with me. As before I joined, there was a bit of a delay. I was moving from one place to another, and I underestimated the logistical arrangements there. And so, pardon me for that. But I think we've been able to make good use of the time. We crashed the program, but I'm sure you're able to benefit from it. So I didn't do an introduction. So my name is Emmanuel Hazel. I'm sure the introduction was done for you. The, the introduction was already done to you. So I'm the lead trainer for Sigma Strat, and Sigma Strat is an authorized training provider that provides, amongst many other things, the PMP and the CAPM program internationally. At the moment, I'm in the UK working on a few projects. But over the next couple of months, we'll be running our projects, our programs in country in a couple of countries. And then we also do run virtual trainings. So I have a refer a friend program. I know all of you have done your programs, so you can share the link with your colleagues and your friends, and they'll be able to get a discount, and you will be able to get a discount. You'll be able to get a gift as well. Let's stay connected. If you can put the first page on the screen. The first page has a QR code. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me. All right. So Halima has put a question over there. During project execution, a team member starts working on an extra feature because they believe it will add value, but no formal change request was approved. What is it called? So she says a lot of people are saying gold plating, value engineering, scope validation, progressive elaboration. All right. So when I do the LinkedIn Live and when we talk about cracking the PMP exam, I teach a sleek way of seeing the answer even if you do not know the concept. There are a couple of ways. Understanding the few keywords over there, knowing some of the principles will help you. B is the correct answer, Halima. So let's stay connected. Take a copy of the QR code. You can take it with your screen, your camera, or you can take a shot of it and later on connect with me on LinkedIn. But the link for referring a friend is also on here. You can share it with your friends. They get a 10% discount on our prices, and then you also get a gift for that when they conclude. So on that note, thank you very much, Mimi. Are there any questions for me? Are there any concerns? Are there any things that you'd want me to touch on?
Oh no, Emmanuel, on my side, I'm fine. I guess like we had a good feedback. It's true that it was challenging, but we managed to adapt to the issue. The risks crystallized to be an issue, and we managed it through. I can just say thank you on behalf of the region, the PMI, and also on behalf of the entire audience. We really hope to have you, during our upcoming sessions again. And I'm sure the delivery will be awesome this time around with a more stable network and less technical issues. But all the same, I guess everything is all right. And on these notes, I would like to also thank you, all the participants. It's true that some are in the time zone where it's already 10 p.m., some at 9 p.m. So we can see that, they are really passionate about getting ready for their exam and kill it. So thanks again, Emmanuel. Thanks, everyone. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with Emmanuel. It doesn't stop here. We go beyond. You have the opportunity to chat to him, write to him, connect with him on LinkedIn. And as for us, for our group, we meet again next week Tuesday, for another session with another instructor, and make sure that all that you get as knowledge, you also harvest the good result of passing your PMP. So thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for availability, and see you. All right.
See you.
So everyone, take care and bye-bye. We'll make sure to share the recording with you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.